Hello everyone and welcome to the Ultrasound podcast with me, Tom Evans, professional trail runner and winner of Western States in 2023.
I'm Brett Saunders, I'm Chief Crew Officer and best man at his wedding.
Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 4 of the Ultrasound podcast. You are here with your two hosts, myself, Tom Evans.
And me, Brett Saunders.
And today we are going to be talking everything through training for ultramarathons.
Perfect. So I think the best place to start off is, how do you decide what you're going to race that year or this year? Or
Yeah, I think everything serves a purpose, and I think like the year itself is a bit like a ginormous puzzle, and it's, you can sort of find a couple of pieces, you know what the outcome wants to look like, but you just what you're trying to do is just figure out a way to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. So last year, for example, 2023, like my main focus was going to be Western States. So I think, right, once you've sort of set that goal, it's then working backwards of okay, well, this is my main goal. Like, in order to achieve this, what have I got to do in training?
Yeah.
And in order to be able to achieve what I would need to do in training, like, how do I do that? So yeah, you almost take like a really far zoomed out image and just slowly zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. So if I take my year, this year, 2024, it's a pretty different looking year, but the end state is UTMB. That's the apex of this year. That's my pinnacle, crescendo moment, whatever you want to call it. For me, that's all of my eggs are in that basket.
Yeah.
So yeah, beginning of this year or / end of last year, like focusing more on some shorter, faster training and racing cross country, and a mini goal for there sort of over winter was to qualify for the cross country world championships over 10k,
Which you did.
Which I did. So I raced in Serbia, Belgrade. Serbia, very cool place.
Yeah. Pretty hilly.
No, very flat.
Very flat.
And actually pretty hot. But amazing. Like, one side of the road, you've got this incredible 5-star glass hotel.
Yeah.
I say incredible. Looks like a standard European hotel. And then on the other side of the road, you've got like proper Eastern Bloc style, Soviet-esque Cold War apartment blocks that you can still see like gunshot holes in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, very cool place to go. So that was a really nice like goal for the beginning of the year that helped to give me a bit of focus and a bit of clarity on the training and something to really aim towards. And then after I've got this like relative speed, after that the training then switched to, okay, well, let's turn this speed into like a mountainous speed race. So it was okay, what can I race 8 weeks after the cross country world championships that has got some mountains, so some climbing but also some speed in. So Transvolcania was the obvious option because loads of climbing and it's fast, and it finished with a fast downhill. So yes, I'm going in a little bit unprepared, but it's a great snapshot to see exactly where I am at that moment in time.
Yeah.
After that, I then plan to do Zugspitze 80k. But with all of this training and planning, life happens. You pick up niggles, and I had a bit of a back problem that thankfully I managed to sort fairly quickly. But yeah, things get delayed. So you then need to slightly think on your feet and put in place other options. So yeah, I've just got back from Lavaredo 120k. So again, quite a fast race, but with more mountains, starting to become a little bit more UTMB specific. And again, it's another snapshot of, okay, where am I? It's great to make some mistakes in these more training races.
Yeah.
And then prepare as well as you possibly can for the big races. So I've now got, going into my final block of like a 8-week training block before UTMB, knowing exactly where I am, what my weaknesses are, and what I need to do in order to improve and bring the best version of myself at UTMB. So I think you can see it's a very structured
And is that one big block that you've had this whole year, or is that still broken down into a couple more blocks for you, or how does that work?
It's broken down. It's broken down massively. Like, I think you can look at it as, a block for us it's typically around a month. Like, simplicity is key. And when you try and massively overcomplicate things, both on, if we talk about like a macro scale, so big picture, and micro scale, if you try and overcomplicate things, it's just going to be mentally and physically draining, and you're not going to get out of it what you need to get out of it. So I think typically around a month, and that looks like 3 weeks of good training, and then a week of an easier week.
Okay, so we've got 8 weeks, roughly 8-9 weeks till.
But this is now where it gets a bit different, and we are not overcomplicating things, but turning things a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
So yes, we've got around about 8 weeks, around about 40 days.
Yeah.
The things that I know that I need to work on and want to maintain at the same time, like 7 days is a great period, and for most runners, people like routine, and they like knowing that, and I think especially in the UK, like our club systems are so set out to do, you do track Tuesday and you do a long run on Sunday, because that's what you've grown up with and that's what you've gone on with. Whereas for me now, the sessions that I want to fit in a period of time, I've not got enough time to be able to recover in between the big sessions that I want to do in order to fit it into a 7-day period.
Right.
So we're now using a 10-day period.
Okay.
Which it's great if you're a full-time athlete and you can't, I can't fit in what I need to in a mini block, and to be really organized, 7 days, brilliant.
Yeah.
I can't recover quick enough between those, and if I tried to squeeze everything into a 7-day period, I'd completely wreck myself. And I think that's a huge difference between and yes, you can do that as a non-professional runner, but it's just way harder to organize.
I guess that's the beauty of being a professional. You can kind of make those mini blocks however long or short you need them to be. And
exactly. And also going into having a plan, no plan survives contact. It's going to change. I can come in with the best plan in the world, but planning and execution are two very different things. And I think the only thing that's guaranteed between now and UTMB in 8 weeks' time is the plan is not going to go to plan.
Yeah, well, absolutely right. And that's part of it all, isn't it?
100%. You can't, who knows what's going to happen. And I think that's where agile minds, you've got to be able to think on your feet. And thankfully, I'm not the only person in my team who's making these decisions.
That takes me on quite nicely to the next question then. Who's involved in making this decision for your race year? And obviously I presume your coach is involved in that as well, but you also bringing in a nutritionist to this part of it, a psychologist, is that all involved? And
yeah, massively. I think, in my opinion, ultra running it's a team sport.
Yeah.
Yes, at the end of the day, you're the individual going out and doing it, but you look at other sports, and I'm definitely not likening myself to a Formula One car, because I'm about the same weight, I imagine, but
paint you red.
Not quite as fast. But yeah, Formula One, it's the driver and the car who are doing the race, but you look at the pit stops and the engineering and everything that goes in behind the scenes is so important. And it's the same with running. It's, yes, at the end of the day, I'm the person who's got to go out and run 100-mile races, but you try and do it on your own, it's going to be really, really difficult.
You're being tuned by all these different clogs sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I am not the expert at everything. I don't think I'm the expert at anything. But these people who who want to be part of the journey, and I think finding the right people to be part of that journey is one of the biggest battles. But
so talk to me. So who's part of this process for this year? Who's gone into it? Is it yourself?
Yeah. So myself, and I guess I've stepped back. If you look at a performance set up in any of like the governing bodies, you'll have a head of performance, and
Yeah.
typically I have always been like the head of my performance, whereas for last year and then this year I've kind of I've taken a bit of a step back from that, and now my physiologist, a guy called Ben Williams, who has worked at Ineos, he's working at QPR, and is just one of the cleverest blokes that I've been fortunate enough to meet, and he's also ex-military, so I've got loads in common. So he is like head of performance, and use him as like a bit of a consultant just to really get things dialed in. And mine and Scott Johnson, my coach, and I've worked with Scott since, I reached out to Scott the week before I had knee surgery in 2022.
Yeah.
And that's when we started working with each other. And I think when who knew if I was ever going to get back to being able to race properly. And I think that's a key example of finding the right people, the people who want to work with you when you're at your worst, rather than the people who want to work with you after you've just won an amazing race.
Obviously saw some potential there.
Yeah, but I think that's it. Like, he knew it was going to be really hard work.
Yeah.
And now, we're sort of slightly reaping the rewards from it, but it's, he works incredibly hard to get me to where I need to be. And I think and again, like, as I do some coaching as well, and I've coached you, and I've coached, girls, predominantly girls who have elite level girls who have won CCC, top 5 at Western States. And it's been for me, like, communication is the biggest thing. And having, like, I've got a WhatsApp group that's got all of the key stakeholders with my training and racing in. So
they're all talking, they're kind of all linked up. It's not like they're all just feeding it into you and then you're kind of
and that's what it used to be, whereas I just found it super stressful that I was like the linchpin, like, as well as trying to do all this training, I'm then trying to do all the organising as well. So it's been really good. And then like strength and conditioning as well. Where does that play where does the strength conditioning play a role within within my training? And I think that's really important to note that, like, all the training needs to be balanced really well. And I started working with Andy Kay, who based in the UK, and has been absolutely brilliant. But getting the right blend of, like, doing strength and conditioning isn't, people will ask, like, it's probably one of the most questions I get asked is like, oh, like, what's your strength and conditioning look like? And it's like, it's so different because it's got to be so specific to the race. Like, we talk about training for the demands of the event. There's no point in being really good at sprinting 100 meters if you're training for an ultra marathon. So, but also, like, the differences between racing Western States and racing UTMB, they're completely different. Like, you need a different set of skills. Like, I describe Western States as you almost need like a hammer or a mallet. Like, you need to be good in the heat, you need to be good with nutrition, and you need to be pretty fast and robust. But skill wise, I think that's about it. If you just get really aerobically fit and heat prepped, you're going to do really well. Whereas at UTMB, you need a massive tool bag with everything from a mallet to a chisel. And having the right people to be able to say, okay, well, these are the demands of the event. So aerobically, this is what you need to do to be able to climb out of Arnuva. It's going to be dark, and you're climbing up Grand Col de Ferret. It's the hardest part of the race for the elite runners because it's still the dark, it's still nighttime, and you've not quite got sunrise yet, and it's the longest climb of the race. How does everything combine there? And then at that point, you then pull in the nutrition piece and, like, okay, well, how are we going to fuel this? Like,
does that nutrition piece start from the first day of the block to the race, or is it all then broken up into smaller bits? And
and again, like, with we talk about, like, periodization with training, and the nutrition's exactly the same with it. Like, you need a fuel for what the job at hand is. Like, what is the demand of the event? What's the demand of this training? Like, what am I going to burn? What do I need to recover from? And I think it's like a 360-degree constantly spinning evolution of preparing for training, recovering from training, which is recovering from training is the same as preparing for training. Then takes you back into training. You need to recover. You need to prepare. And it just goes on and on and on. And it is
never-ending cycle.
It's a never-ending cycle, which can be really complicated if you want to overcomplicate it. And I think it's like nowadays it's a bit of a minefield with recovery things. Like you can, just recovery boots and ice baths.
There's so much out there.
There's so much out there, and like I go through stages of using stuff, and actually the most consistent I've ever been in my training is when I did the least amount of
recovery
faff.
Really?
And just slept.
Yeah, fair.
Like if that's the biggest performance gainer that you can have in order to help your recovery is getting more sleep.
Yeah.
Whereas people were like, I need to buy this £1,800, €2,000 set of recovery boots.
Just go to bed.
Just sleep. Like you're going to get so much more from that.
Yeah.
Huge thank you for Maurten for sponsoring. I started testing with Maurten in 2017 and was one of the first athletes in the UK to use it, and I've been using it every season since. I use the whole range of products, including the Drink Mix 320, the Gel 160, and more recently, sodium bicarbonate. The Hydrogel allows me to hit high carbohydrate goals with no stomach issues to make me feel my best on race day. Go and give Maurten a go and fuel yourself for your next race. To benefit from your one-time code and get 20% of your next purchase on Maurten.com, simply enter the code ULTRASOUND20 at the checkout. Valid until the 30th September 2024. The code is applicable on all products except the Maurten Bicarb System.
I think we touched quite a lot on the physical side of things. Do you have a psychologist in the camp as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as a psychologist, probably it's the most personal one because I'm not particularly good about talking about not necessarily my feelings, but opening myself up. And I guess the psychology side, that's been the hardest that I've found to get the right psychologist, having worked with quite a few psychologists that I think have been good, but the best psychologist maybe isn't the best psychologist for you, and finding the right people in the team is brilliant. And that doesn't mean the psychologist I'm working with now is useless. She's absolutely incredible. Like we've not been working with each other for that long, but when there are just to be able to, you feel like my ambition is to leave no stone unturned, and what can I do? Like physically it's being taken care of, and I find that's kind of the easy bit to do. But when things get really tough in races, like I think I've got the ability to be able to suffer well, but like what happens when I can't? Like what if I feel like when life happens and there are other stresses, like how can I, doing it on your own would become really, really difficult. Whereas if you can do it with someone else and help to go through things, set up strategies for races when things do get tough, putting a little bit of structure to it. Like I think going from boarding school to the military, I'm very institutionalized and I'm very structured, and I really like the structure. And for me, like structure is a bit of a safety net. Whereas in a sport like ultra running, you can have as much or as little structure as you want, and there are some athletes who do amazingly well with very, very little structure. Whereas for me and my personality type is I really need that structure.
To know what's going. I mean, because in ultra running, like you said, things happen, things change, and like to have that's quite a big shock. So
it's a huge shock.
I guess having the ability to kind of deal with that in the moment and overcome it is a huge part of it.
For sure. And I think putting in strategies for when things are going well, but also for when things aren't.
Probably more important for when things are going against you, that you need something like that around you. I mean, so that kind of that does come very nicely. Did this start since the Cape Town incident?
Yeah, I've worked with psychologists before, and after Cape Town, for those who don't know, I was mugged on the trails in Cape Town, sort of in the race week of Ultra Trail Cape Town. Held at knife point, and genuinely thought that I was going to be killed. Really, really tough moment in one of the hardest moments to get over in my life. And I then came back to the UK. I tried to just get on with things normally, and I raced a cross country race a week later and had what I can only describe as like a panic attack on the start line. And the start happened, and I just stood there, and I was like, I genuinely just don't know how to process anything. And I need to get this sorted out. And it was so like, there's so much not stigma with talking to psychologists, and I think in sport it makes it easier because you say, oh yeah, it's like a sports psych, it's kind of normalized in there's not everyone who uses it, but it's fairly normalized. Whereas like actually seeing I saw a trauma specialist afterwards because she was the best person for the job. And
for the job for you.
For the job for me, but all, like, it's a different environment, it's a different thing that's ever happened, and you can either try and deal with it on your own, or you can actually be a bit more proactive, which I think is like one of my real strengths, is being proactive and finding the right people for this. And I used for anyone who is struggling, like I used and this is not an ad at all, I know they do like to sponsor podcasts, so if they want to sponsor the podcast, they can. But I used the BetterHelp. You just Google BetterHelp and got matched up with a trauma specialist after a few questions, and she was absolutely incredible. Because if you've decided that you need help, that's the first really good step. And then after that, once you've decided you need help, you need to get help. And for me, that was so useful, and kind of feel like I've now put that to bed. Like, I guess for me, the real worry was I do a lot of my training camps on my own. I run a lot on my own. And the first couple of runs that I ran on my own, I really didn't enjoy, and I was a bit nervous. And still now, like, I don't particularly like, would I go back to South Africa and run on the trails on my own? Absolutely not. I've got no desire to do that, but so many people do, and they're absolutely fine. But for me, like, for my mental state, this is yes, it's my job, but it's my passion at the same time. Like, I love running, and I will run. If I wasn't a professional athlete, I would still run a lot. And I want that to be, I want to feel safe, and anything that, I can, having gone through this, I don't want, and if I can't control whether it happens to anyone else or not, but if it does, like, there is the help out there to get it. And I think that ties in, like, with everything, like, if you figure you need help with something, ask for help. Whether that's with strength and conditioning, or it's with nutrition, psychology, a coach, whatever it is, there is someone out there who probably knows more than you do. Or there is someone who has been through something similar. And I think it's where, like, going slightly off topic, it's where run clubs in the UK now have just become so huge, because it's bringing in like-minded people into the same place. Everyone's gone through the same thing. Like, if you're struggling with a calf niggle, for example, and you go to a run club, guaranteed someone there has had exactly the same thing. And it's probably because you've not followed a training program, and you've run too much, too fast, too soon. But there's the help out there to help get it sorted. And you've got to be a bit proactive.
I think it's a good point, that there's a very good community out there for all that sort of stuff.
And I guess that's what this podcast is for.
Absolutely.
This is to reach. Like, I want to try and help as many people as we can in their ultra running or running journeys. But as a professional athlete, like, I've not got the time to be able to do that. So if people can listen to this on a run on a Thursday morning, it'd be amazing.
Absolutely right. And that's from any scale sort of thing. Someone who's just going out to their first couple of K, or someone who's doing, I don't know, 120K in Italy in the Dolomito, or wherever it is. In the Dolomitos.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost Italian.
Yes, anyway, so moving slightly away from your team and kind of who's involved in going into that, I think we'll touch back on the blocks sort of thing and get a bit more specific into that. So part of these blocks, obviously you mentioned a mini block could be anywhere from 7 to 10 days, maybe longer, kind of however your schedule's looking. But if we're talking about the lead up into UTMB, what's your week your 10 days going to look like?
So the areas that we have identified that I really want to work on is uphill speed.
Okay.
So uphill velocity, the ability to be able to get from the bottom of a climb to the top of the climb as quickly as I can, but using the least amount of energy as I can. So we're going to break that into two different parts. One is a strength element, and that will be ticked off with strength in the gym, but also strength on the trails. So uphill weighted reps, for example.
Okay. What's that, wearing like a weighted vest?
Yeah, wearing a weighted vest.
Yeah.
Or using bottled water is sort of the best way to do it, because you then get to the top and you don't really want to run downhill with the weight.
Yeah.
So you can drink the water, get rid of the water, and then refill at the bottom again.
Nice.
So, which is a nice way to do it. And then an uphill speed workout, and there's a particular there's a coach who coaches lots of marathon runners called Canova. So what my coach Scott Johnson has done is he's taken sort of a Canova training philosophy principle and has turned it into a mountain running specific, which we've used a lot before, and it works really, really well. Incredible. So like uphill intervals.
Yeah.
And then, so that's sort of they're two big workouts. And then need to be able to maintain like my flat and slightly downhill speed, because that's not my weapon, but I feel that's my strength. Like,
but it's flat and downhill speed on like pretty rough terrain as well.
Exactly. So, but like you want to, in the military, like you would reinforce success. So you want to get your best even better and be more efficient and make that be your secret weapon, I guess. So that's the third sort of key session.
Yeah.
And then long runs.
Just chill long runs.
A chilled long run, but then also like a long run with race efforts in it. So those are like the four big: strength uphill, speed uphill, relative speed threshold on flat, and long run with effort in. And I guess the other long run doesn't really count. Like,
which I guess that explains completely how you can't fit that into a 7 day.
Yeah, so I've got 4 sessions that I want to fit it. 4 hard sessions that I want to fit in. Like, yes, I might do 2 of them on the same day at points if my body allows it.
Yeah.
And like double threshold training. It's the Norwegian method, as it's being called, which people think is sort of a fairly recent thing, but it's not. It's been going on for a long time, and it really works.
Yeah.
And I guess that's all about the reason why you can do it is its intensity control. Yeah. And it's where I think the better athletes are really good at not going too hard. Like each session serves a purpose. And and then it's got like parameters in it. So whether it's heart rate or it's lactate, and that's how a lot of professionals measure their intensity is with lactate, making sure you're not working too hard, because typically people like easy runs, for example, people run way too fast. Like I get overtaken more on my easy runs than I overtake people on my easy runs.
Your easy runs are still pretty quick.
Yeah, but they should be.
Yeah,
for someone who's run a 62-minute half marathon, my easy run should be
that's very true.
Fast, but they shouldn't be. They should probably be faster than most people.
But they shouldn't be 62-minute.
But there are a lot of people who will do their easy runs significantly quicker than I do. Which I would suggest that it's probably not easy. And you're not recovering. Like my philosophy is like I do my easy runs easy so I can do my hard runs hard.
Yeah.
Because if a lot of people will do their easy runs too hard and their hard runs too easy. So you're not getting the right stimulus that you need from it. So by having those 4 key workouts, so in a 7-day block, there's not enough time to recover and get volume and do another long run in that. So actually, if we flip that to 10 days, so 4 days hard, 6 days easy, it gives me the ability to be able to recover between sessions, so I can follow the principles that we've laid down of being able to do my easy runs easy and my hard runs hard. Because,
and you having any days off your feet that in that 10-day period? It's all...
People, yes, when you, as a professional athlete, I'm incredibly fortunate that I don't have many other commitments outside of it. And when I do, like a photo shoot or media stuff, then the program needs to change. Because, your body has only got the ability to absorb a certain amount of stress. And going away on a training camp is brilliant because you remove as much of that extra stress from being at home. And like for us, like one of our chickens will go next door and you've got to go around next door and ask for your chicken back. Or we've got a dog that runs in, or sort of animal related my problems. Or like, you've got phone calls with sponsors partners and things like that. And things get in the way. Thanks to Plasmade for sponsoring the pod. Plasmade is a complementary plant-based adaptogen that has benefits across performance and recovery, as well as reducing travel stress. It's only to be taken pre and or post-race and training sessions, not during. Fundamentally, Plasmade, through its only active ingredient, French maritime pine bark extract, increases endogenous stabilized nitric oxide production, a vasodilator that increases oxygen uptake in the bloodstream and better circulation, as well as triggering powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. By Plasmade preparing and optimizing the body, the efficiency of your in-race supplementation and hydration intake is increased. So, in summary, you perform better and recover faster. Allow me to introduce you to Plasmade by using the code ULTRA20, that is ULTRA20, at the checkout on the Plasmade websites to receive a 20% discount. And join me in using Plasmade.
So I guess maybe like if you're then trying to, as you said, you coach a lot of very good athletes as well, but also coaching like the likes of me, for example,
very amateur
landscape gardener from Sussex. So that must be quite tricky for you to kind of, because firstly, I would say, I think a lot of people run faster because they don't have much time with everything else going on in work. And I'm not saying that's an excuse to it, but people want to get their run done, get back in the shower, get back in work sort of thing. So I guess that's quite hard to coach an everyday runner to like yourself. I mean, it's completely different ends of the spectrum, but what advice can you give an everyday runner like me to try and make sure that they're doing everything they need to?
Yeah, mate, I think it's a really good point. And I think the first thing is, like, if you are choosing to use a coach, which I think it's definitely not for everyone, but I think it can be super beneficial because you then don't have to worry. You're creating a team around you to be able to make these decisions for you.
Yeah.
My role as a coach is to take some of that stress out of the athletes that I coach's lives.
Yeah.
But again, going back to communication, if the athlete doesn't communicate with the coach, you're not going to know if your work is particularly stressful. And the athletes of mine who do the best, it doesn't mean that they win races, but the athletes who do better than what they should do on paper are the ones who communicate the most.
Yeah.
Because a problem shared is a problem halved. And that ability to be able to modify things. And I think it's like one key tip that I use, and as an athlete but also as a coach, is like I don't train on distance, I train on time.
Yeah.
So doesn't matter if you've got an hour to train today, fine.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't mean you've got to cram. It doesn't mean you've got to run 16 kilometers.
Yeah.
If you've got an hour run, you've got an hour run.
Yeah.
And whether it's easy, moderate, or hard is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like you do what you're set, and that's it. Because everything, like I said, going back to the puzzle pieces, everything is a piece of the puzzle. Every run, every training session that we do serves a purpose.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to put the wrong piece of the puzzle in the piece of the puzzle that you're trying to do, it's not going to work. You can try and ram it in, but something's going to break off it.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about balance and trying to figure things out and be really flexible with figuring things out. But if you're so adamant that this is what I have to do and you've got no flexibility in it, you're going to break the little nodule that you try and put in. Like what's the saying? Like putting a round peg into a square hole. That's what a lot of people try and do. It's like, well, no, sometimes you've got to roll with it and just say, actually, this doesn't work, or let's change things up a little bit. And I think that's, for me, that's where as an athlete, that's where my team, that's where they are the best that they possibly can be.
And does that, so these four, well, sorry, your little 10-day camp, not little, your 10-day blocks that you're doing, is that solely Scott telling you what to do, or is that have you inputted into that?
Yeah, there's got to be input from the athlete, because where I am, other commitments that I've got, like if I've got a busy day filming for Adidas, for example, I'm not going to be able to do a 6-hour training run. And these photo shoots and things, they might look easy, but they're not. It is genuinely a really hard day, and it takes so much out of you.
Yeah.
But as a professional athlete, that's what you've got to do. That's the few commitments that I have.
So it's flexible.
It's got to be flexible, because you try and sort of stick to the plan every single day and have no room to maneuver. That's where you're going to stop enjoying it.
Yeah.
And what if you sleep badly?
So are you giving Scott like your schedule for next week so he can then work around it?
Scott's got access to my calendar.
Oh really?
Yeah, and he has to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because if you want to be one of the very best, like, again, going back to communication, it's just so important.
Yeah.
And then I will then feed back. I do a morning report where, like, a track my sleep with Garmin. That then goes straight into Training Peaks that I use.
Yeah.
And I will then comment on it, like, feeling good today. I've then got a list of like 10 multiple choice questions.
Yeah.
That's like, did I travel yesterday? Do I feel sick today?
Yeah.
Am I hydrated? When I'm on a training camp, I'll do like a hydration score where you basically pee into a cup, get a little pipette, get a little bit of wee out, drop it into the machine, and that would then tell you how hydrated you are.
Yeah.
So some days you'll be more, some days you'll be less, and it's sort of just trying to balance that to make sure that your hydration is on key.
So your feedback to Scott is pretty specific. He is like, you are very in check with each other.
Yeah, and if you want to be as good as you can be, I think you don't have to do it.
Yeah, of
but
course.
It's something that helps, because yes, doing it for a week isn't going to make much of a difference, but doing it for a long period of time and seeing a trend. So now we've collected all of this data. I know, okay, if I do a long run in the UK, if I do a 6-hour run in the UK, I know that normally like 36 hours after that, I'm pretty much fully recovered.
Okay.
But if I do a 6-hour run at altitude, it's almost double the recovery time.
Okay.
Because we've collected this data, we know how to plan for things.
Yeah.
But even if you don't collect the data and you don't give that feedback, then every time you're doing it, you're just guessing, or you're trying to remember, was it this or was it that? But if you get it down and you log it in however you want to log it, whether it doesn't need to be on Training Peaks, it doesn't need to be in like anything super specific.
Yeah.
Have a notebook.
Yeah.
Like, or just
simplify it, just get it down.
Put it in your notes app on your phone, or write it down, or however you want to do it. But I think like getting it out there is so important, and it only helps you become better.
And how are you? I mean, moving on a little bit from that, in terms of you're talking about the recovery, a long run in the UK, a long run in altitude sort of thing. How are you replicating? Obviously you can't replicate the altitude, but in terms of like climbing, can you replicate that training in the UK that you're going to do in the Alps?
Yeah, to a certain extent. So I guess the closer we get to a race, the more specific the training looks.
Yeah.
So, and that's both like, as from doing cross country at the beginning of this year looks not much like UTMB to now the training looks like training in the mountains.
Yeah.
So what I would do pretty much is I'll take a ratio. So the climbing ratio for UTMB. So I know for every 170 kilometers that I run in training, I need to climb. The goal is to climb 10,000 meters.
Okay.
Because that's the specificity that we need. And I guess that's something we've not really spoken about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But going back to the phrase of training for the demand of the event, that's the specificity. If you're training for UTMB, there's no real benefit of being able to run a sub 4-minute mile.
And how long out has that been? Like, how far back have you started that every 170k you're running, you're going to then try and climb 10,000 meters? Because in the cross country season,
yeah,
I can't imagine there was any chance you were running anywhere near that elevation.
No, because I was training for the demand of the event.
Yeah, that's very true. But then that was still part of the build up to UTMB for this year.
That's one of the puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
So then is there a perfect way to do it? Probably not. But for me, like a 12-week block and with a week-long taper at the end, I think is the.
So that is the main headline of this block now.
Yeah.
Every 170k you run 10,000 meters climb. I know it sounds simple, but
that's the goal. Sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. And then training in a 10-day block, like some weeks might be less, some weeks might be more.
Yeah.
But it becomes fairly difficult to track volume in a 10-day block. So in the 10-day block, we can modify it. So a 10-day block, typically like 245, 255 kilometers with 14,000 meters of climbing, roughly.
Yeah.
But it changes massively because you might do a week where you do a little bit more intensity and you've only got a certain amount of energy, like intensity plus distance equals volume. Like all kilometers or miles aren't built the same.
Yeah.
Like I could run in the UK comfortably, I can run 200k a week, every week in, week out, no issues whatsoever.
Yeah.
Whereas 200 kilometers in the UK is very different to 200 kilometers in the Alps.
Yeah.
It might take twice as long.
Yeah.
If not longer.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just so, and then that's why we go back onto the time element. And then, like, we've not even spoken about cross training. So in the UK, like, I like to train high-ish volume. So using standardizing into a week-long format, typically somewhere between 25 and 30 hours of training.
Yeah.
Of endurance training. That's not including gym and flexibility and that stuff that sort of is park it on the side.
Or your gymnastics.
Well, actually, Pilates, reformer Pilates has been a complete game changer.
Really?
But
the hot room.
No, that's too hard. So I just want to jump in and say a massive thank you for Garmin for sponsoring. I've been using Garmin now for over 6 years, and it was actually my first watch that I bought when I was in the army. Now, as a professional athlete, I use Garmin 24/7 to measure not just my training, but my HRV and also tracking my sleep. For me, I find the most valuable things about my Garmin is using the features such as Pace Pro and Climb Pro for when I'm racing. This really helps me to gauge the effort, especially going uphill, to make sure that I don't go too hard too soon and I'm able to finish the race off in style. Finally, and I think the most important thing, is the battery life. Having a watch that can last longer than you can out on the trails is an absolute game changer, and looking forward to using Garmin for the rest of the season. Yeah, it all adds together. So that's that stuff doesn't count as the training hours.
Yeah.
In the UK, if I try to run 30 hours a week, that would be such a huge amount of distance, my body would start breaking down. So that's then when I started to implement more cycling and more cross training. Yeah. Whereas when I'm in the Alps, in a really specific build to a race like UTMB, I won't cycle as much. I might use it for a bit of recovery or a bit of heat prep, because I'm training for 30 hours a week and only covering 200 kilometers in the mountains, but 30 hours is enough. Yeah. I think, but yeah, there's no week that really looks exactly the same, because there's like progressive overload in everything. Everything is, you are wanting to improve. You don't want to stay still in your progression at any point. You don't want to progress too fast, but there needs to be some trajectory of where you're going.
So how many hours are you doing on a bike in a week?
It depends how many hours that I'm running.
Yeah, that's right.
If I'm running 10 hours a week, I'd sort of look to do 10 to 15 hours on the bike.
Any other cross training methods? I mean, I know you used to have that pretty strange looking scooter bike thing in Sussex?
Yeah, so like
What is that?
That was an elliptigo.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a cross trainer but with wheels, and you can do it outside.
Seeing this man, this really fit bloke in UGG boots, just going.
I'm not sure everyone wore UGG boots to do it. Maybe I did. Keep your feet warm.
But yeah, what else are you using? Do you row?
No, not really. I think
Is it just the bike?
yeah, pretty much just the bike. It's sort of the most specific. I do use a little bit of the Stairmaster.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, but again, it's hard.
So for people trying to chase like big elevation run, is a Stairmaster?
Stairmaster's brilliant.
Yeah.
Stairmaster's brilliant because it's so steep.
Yeah.
Anyone who lives in a relatively flat place and has got
Yeah.
access to a gym with a Stairmaster, I think it's a brilliant way to get additional
Yeah.
elevation and to get that strength in your legs. Is it that specific? No, but it's more specific than running flat. So again, it's fitting these pieces of the puzzle together. You've identified your weaknesses in the areas that you need to grow.
Yeah.
And you've now found a plan. Okay, this is how I'm going to improve.
Yeah. Okay. Questions. I have a question for you, Tom.
Okay.
How are you choosing your pacer?
So, paces in races. You're not getting the call up. I promise you, you're not getting the call up. You can crew me. You can change my shoes for me. You're not pacing for me. But if you did, I would try and drop you. So
80 miles in.
Pacing is, I guess it's a bit more of an American thing rather than a European thing. Like at UTMB and at most of the big races, I'm not sure of any races in Europe where you're allowed a pacer. There probably are some. I've not done any. But a race like Western States in the US, 100-mile race, you're allowed a pacer from Forest Hill.
Yeah.
So for pretty much the second half of the race. And yeah, how do you pick a pacer? I guess it's sort of in two parts. One, physically, they've got to be able to do it. And then two, mentally, like you want that, I guess a bit of a safety net with them. So
Yeah.
I had Western States, I was paced by an Adidas Terex teammate, Josh Eberly, who actually before the race, like we'd spent a bit of time together, but I didn't know him that well. And I think actually in those environments, it was absolutely perfect because I felt great. I didn't need sort of a shoulder to cry on or anyone to feel sorry for me. I just needed someone to keep pushing me.
Yeah.
And having Josh was absolutely brilliant. And I think in that environment, that was perfect. Whereas in other environments, if you're really struggling, actually someone that you can just sort of walk on the trail with is brilliant. So I think again, it's picking the right people there is no right or wrong answer. Some people love having pacers, other people don't. I was actually supposed to pick up my pacer at Forest Hill at Western State, so at the halfway point. But because I was still running with Dakota Jones at that point, I decided actually I want to keep my head in the game and focus on the race and not change the dynamics.
Yeah.
But by the time I'd got to Rucky Chucky River Crossing...
Yeah, the canyon. Was it? No, not the canyon. Yeah, it was the canyon. Yeah.
Yeah, the bottom in the river crossing sort of it. Yeah, between Rucky Chucky and Greengate.
Yeah.
I then picked up... Well, I didn't physically pick him up. I was a bit tired for that. But I then had Josh to pace me for like the last... I think it's like 22 miles.
Yeah, I remember that well.
So yeah, I think it's... Yeah, having a pacer can be really useful, but making sure you've got the right pacer at the right time. But then don't try and get a pacer if you're in a race that you're not allowed to race.
Were they crossing the river this year, not in the boats? Just pulling themselves? Is that a new thing?
No, it changes every year depending on the water current.
Okay, fair enough. I actually think I saw one of the runners last year lost contact with not last year or whenever, lost contact with the rope and was like going down the river. Is that Jim?
It happens to Jim in his first year.
Is that who it was?
And it shows that the very, very best, and Jim is the best male runner at Western States. It can happen to the best of you.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, people make mistakes, and he's learned from it, and he's now won 4 times.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a tale from the trail, if you've got one. Worst post-race experience, sore or similar. Now, I've got something that I remember seeing a video from Sophie when you came third at UTMB a few years ago, going down some stairs.
Yeah.
And that was quite eye-opening, really. I mean, how well you were moving before that, and then seeing that.
Quad pain is real.
Yeah.
The quad pain is real and legit. It is. Yeah. I guess sometimes you don't fully appreciate how bad it's going to be. And the thing that I can't believers, like 1 minute you're running and you're absolutely fine running through the streets of Chamonix, and then you sit down and your body just goes into complete meltdown.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, you can barely walk. Like everything is just locked up and seized up. And I think your body is so incredible at knowing when it can relax and what it needs to do to recover itself. It's like for those who work, like as soon as you get holiday from work, when you get sick, because your body just relaxes and it knows it can relax, it knows what to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty bad, but I think kind of to be expected. Like I think
Absolutely
if you weren't finding things tough, what typically happens, and actually UTMB for the elite men is okay if you finish fairly early because you're finishing the race at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Roughly. Whereas for the elite men at Western States, like you're finishing in the evening. So you've been fueling and using caffeine. And for Western States in 2023, I was fairly high on the caffeine. Like typically somewhere between like 2 and 5 grams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight, whereas I was a little bit higher for Western States, and I finished at like 7 p.m. So anti-doping test, and then you're then
straight into burgers.
Well, there was I think I had a little bit of food, but your stomach shrinks when you run for such long distances, so you're not hungry at all. But then I then managed to, you have a good race, so you don't really sleep, so you're just sort of just there like scrolling through your phone and trying to sleep. But I then woke up at like 2 a.m, sort of the hungriest I have ever been, and all I had, and it's something that you should definitely do preparing for an ultra if you're on race day, pre-race day, is make food to have after you finish and to have overnight, because you'll wake up and you'll be hungry. I had absolutely nothing. The only thing that I had was the leftover sports nutrition from the race. So I'm sort of eating like sports bars designed for in race. Yeah. And you're just thinking, I'm an absolute shell of a human
I have to say
being.
that morning was probably one of the most special things I've witnessed at a running event, going back and seeing that like
for the golden
hour.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's the most, if anyone's ever in need of motivation, the last hour of Western States is just
seeing those people come in. Like I remember that man coming in and he had like, I don't know, 30 seconds to get around the track. I don't think he actually made it, but it was just
Lucy Bartholomew's dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. But it's inspiration.
It's so motivational. It's so inspiring,
really
because
is.
You've done the same as them, and actually theirs has been significantly harder than yours because you've been fortunate enough to finish earlier and get some sleep and less time in the heat, and they are true warriors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, well, thank you all. Brett, firstly, thank you for coming along to the podcast again. Not that you've got a choice, but listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 4 of the Ultrasound podcast. Please make sure you share the podcast on social media. Tell all of your friends. Pass the pod, as Crouchy would say. Like and subscribe, and look forward to seeing you next week in the Ultrasound podcast.
Speak to you the next week.
Thank you very much.